So this video is going to look at how I actually started freelance programming. Many courses, many people will tell you do X, Y, Z, and then you've got a job or you've got some payment incoming. But I'm going to show you the things they don't show you, which are the actual emails, quotes, invoices that I sent people from my very first job. I'm also going to show you all the mistakes that I made along the way and things that I would change now in hindsight. I'll also tell you the good things that came out of my naivety back then. I just didn't know, but I believed I was worth something, so I charged accordingly eventually, but not in the first place. So without much further ado, let's get on with that. So I've got a couple layers here on my photo app. And what I want to show you is, first of all, the description. Now, if you're on mobile, maybe this isn't so easy to read. I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to get the information on screen. But I'm going to point out the relevant bits anyway and zoom in and out, so you should be able to see it. So this is a description that was posted on a website called People Per Hour, which is a freelance website similar to Upwork and similar sites like that. And this guy says, I have some general information for the business. This is to be a music sharing and recording application for consumers ranging from 10 upwards. So a child app. Now back then, this was 2014, I believe, the end of 2014, there wasn't as much focus on things being child friendly in terms of advertising and what have you. So it doesn't really have a bearing on today's market in terms of the functionality that I put in the app, because now you'd have to be careful with advertising and stuff like that. Anyway, that aside, kind of development, new program from scratch. So first of all, this is just stuff. Whoop, let's get a better color for that. This is all just stuff that's asked by People Per Hour of the person posting. So they don't just post, I want an app, contact me. Those people you should avoid like the plague, right? There's my first top tip for you. Do not make apps for people that can't be bothered to specify what they want, because you'll be stuck in an endless cycle of arguing about what things should cost and trying to find out information you need from them. So dump those guys immediately. Then we've got description of requirements functionality. We're looking at developing a music app for Android. I won't read through all of this, because basically what the app does is allow you to record your voice rapping over a backing rap track. Sounds simple, not so simple in practice as it turned out at that point in time. But some other stuff I'd like to highlight. He needs to have a cost and a timescale as soon as possible. And he's looking at having a pilot app ready for testing and playing with. So this guy's got his head square on his shoulders in some ways. He realizes you don't get a finished product in the first round. You just need a pilot. And that's probably, well, it was actually, so he could show that to an investor, and the investor could invest more money to produce the end app. Right? So that's why he's asking for a pilot. So he has something physical to show people. That's a massive shortcoming of humanity, is that we usually can't imagine the future without having some rough product in our hand. Right? So if you were Steve Jobs and you'd said, I'm going to make a phone that's a touchscreen, put a deposit down now, nobody would have deposited on that. But if you showed them the physical prototype working in whatever rough functionality, many people will put a deposit down. It's because we like to see, we like something tangible in front of us. Hence his request for the pilot app side of this. If you're a beginner programmer, then you're probably a bit daunted facing a landscape of hundreds of languages and frameworks. What you need, even more than programming knowledge, is clarity around your learning journey. You need a map. A map that shows you what technical and non-technical skills are required as an employee, freelancer, or entrepreneur. And that's where my free guide comes in, Zero Dev to Hero Dev. It outlines top-level skills you need to become an employee, freelancer, entrepreneur, or any mixture of the three. If you want a map to success, then this guide is what you're looking for. Get it for free at imdev.net/hero. So now let's look at the next layer in here. This is my reply to the guy's proposal, or it's my proposal to his description of the app. First of all, I tell him where I am because that's important to some people. You know, on websites like these, if we just go back to this other layer, we have, if you notice right at the top here, we have the other guys that were bidding for this job. 3 of these guys are Indians. Now, if you're an Indian, they have no issues with Indian programmers. They work hard. They're very good at what they do. But there's a problem that people have in countries that aren't India, in that if you run away with someone's money, if you're a scam artist, I'm not saying you are, but if you do, the person in England contracting someone in India has no recourse. They can't get the money back. Going through the courts is crazy. I know some Indians who tell me about the legal issues you have in India when it comes to actually getting money back, and it's a case of just forget it. So what I'm trying to point out here is that I've already beat all of these guys. Maybe not the weird smiley thing, but by weird smiley thing, I mean this. But I don't think that's a good profile picture for a professional developer, to be honest. But the other 3 guys, they would have to be really, really good in order to beat me out on this quote because it's in the UK. Now, if you're watching this, and I know 15% of my audience is from India, then what I would say to you is the number one thing to do if you're bidding on jobs in the West is tell them that you will take a deposit, but you will only take full payment once things are delivered. So you're trying to de-risk it for your client. Admittedly, you take on a bit of risk doing that because they might not pay. But in my experience, if someone's willing to, have some specs like this that are really detailed or detailed enough, then they will pay for a decent product. So that's my advice. If you're not in the Western world where you can't retrieve the money through the court system easily, then my advice to you is to de-risk it for your client and make it clear that you're doing that for them because people don't like risk. Okay. So anyway, that's enough of that. So that's the description. Now there's the proposal. So back to where I am. I'm based in Manchester, and hence why I told him that. So he knows that if something goes wrong, he has legal recourse to get the money back from me or the app, whatever it is. Then I tell him a couple details of the tech that I use. So back then I was using Xamarin. Xamarin's a cross-platform framework that lets you do iOS and Android apps and Windows, but who uses that now? Universal Windows platform, that is. And Intel XDK or PhoneGap, things like that. So Intel XDK is HTML5, just a tech heads up. It's good for some things, not great for other things. I made a mistake in this. I tried to use the Intel XDK and, well, you'll see later on how that worked or didn't work. And then I told him stuff that I've published. Why? Conference Plus, which are no longer on the app stores, by the way. And developing software for a wireless temp sensor that syncs to Amazon storage databases. And importantly there, I've said that's relevant for you. Why have I said that? Well, because his app has something to do with the internet. Now, he was fairly technical, but he had no idea how to code stuff, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, look, I've made some stuff. I've proven it because they're on the stores. And I've made stuff that's related to the app that you want. It has, as loose as the connection is, it has some connectivity to the internet. And that's what his app needs. And then I give him what I think his app should be made in. Sorry, that's terrible contrast for you guys watching. Should make that much brighter. So there I say, I think your app should be made in HTML5 because it's more easily cross-platform. As it turns out, I was wrong about that, but nonetheless. So what I'm doing in this step is I'm saying to the guy, I know what your issue is. You have 2 apps you want to make. That's expensive. I think I can reduce the cost. I should have said that explicitly. I should have said minus, whoop, that's the wrong pen for this, cost minus minus. Right? So I should have actually said that. And then at that point, he would say, this guy is looking out for my total spend. He's not just out to rip me off. That's a concern people have when it comes to freelancing. Okay. As far as I can ascertain, so this section I am saying to the guy, I've read your requirements and this is what I think you need. So it's basically login, user login, access to web storage. I was going to use Amazon S3, but I was happy to use his web storage. The user should listen to the track through headphones, so the backing track doesn't interfere with the voice recording. I don't think that would be an issue these days because we have quite good noise cancellation on devices. And then a rating system that syncs to the same web storage or database. And you can see back then, I knew enough to tell him what he wanted, but I didn't know enough to say that that should be a database. Maybe, I did know we needed a database, but I called it storage. Hi, hey-ho. The customer usually doesn't know what the tech is about. Okay. And then I go into the graphical user interface, front page, which loads the latest and best mixes, so listening is only one tap away, like 8Tracks, which is an old music app I used to listen to, filters to refine by age, track, and rating. And then I said, I can get the pilot app to you by Christmas, because that's when I estimated. Now, what date was this? 9th of December, so 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get the app back. Now, there are interview questions. What challenges do you see in this job? I think I replied to that, but I haven't actually screenshotted that. But basically, what I want you to take away from this overall are the different sections where I'm basically selling myself. I'm building trust, saying, look, this is stuff I've done. This is stuff I've done that's relevant to you. Then I'm saying, I recommend you make your app this way because the cost could be less. And then I say, I think you've said this. Could you confirm it? And then I give them, the GUI and the time scales. People want time scales. So if you go back to the first item, I look forward. Oh, it's still hidden. Whoops. Here. I look forward to hearing back from you ASAP. That's not showing on my screen. Okay. Anyway, this section here, I look forward to hearing back from you ASAP. He wants it in a rush. And what he's got here, testing and playing with by the end of month, beginning of January. And so by saying to him Christmas, I've beat his estimate by a week. So now he's going to think, hey, this guy's great. He's beat my estimate. He's providing all the stuff I want. He understands what I need. That's the important takeaway. You have to develop a rapport with your customer and say, look, I understand what you need. I think it's this. Am I right? So following on from there, we had, thanks for your reply and proposal. Very interested in your approach and if possible, would like to talk to you before making final decision. So he wants a phone call because he still doesn't know me. Now, as humans, we like face-to-face contact or at least voice-to-voice contact. You want to speak to the person so you know that all of that text you just saw me write isn't BS, basically. So we had the call and then bang, what did he do? He deposited £100 in my account. Now, here comes the point that is bittersweet for me. Because this was my first job, I bid £200 to the guy, which is nothing. For this, at least, very least, £1,000, probably more like 2 or 3 grand. Would I have got the job by doing that? Don't know, to be honest. If you know who you're dealing with, then you could charge that. I was an idiot. I should have charged at least 400 quid, and he would have paid it, definitely. So, he's deposited 100 quid because I said this will cost 200. And then he's said something about, you can call or text me anytime because now his money's invested, it's on the line. He wants to know what's happening. I look forward to seeing the first pass on Monday, and I'd like to view progress between now and then. Now, this customer was a bit more involved than perhaps I'd like, but on the flip side, you don't have to wait for specifications because he's on it. So I will take that over the customer being overly involved to get those specs on time. Right, so this is the final section of the video where I confirm what I'm doing. as per our call, I will have a framework ready by Monday 15th of December. With all of these things, which is a lot of things. I've said don't expect fancy graphics because you're not paying very much. And then following your appraisal, I'll make some changes with something to upload to the Play Store. Now, I've made a mistake there because he didn't want to actually upload it. He wanted a beta app, basically, to play with to decide what goes into the next section. So I shouldn't have said that bit, but I did nonetheless. And then I said, I envisage this completing by the 21st of December. And then I also give him a couple of things he needs to be aware of. File uploads have no security. I wouldn't put this in next time. Definitely not. It's a technical subject, and I should be able to take care of that as the developer developing this app. This, I'll provide you with the key store. Nowadays, you don't have to worry about this, but back then you had a key store, and if you lost that key store, you couldn't update your app in the Google Play Store, which is a bit crazy to me because Apple tie the keys to your account, so you can always get more keys. Anyway, and if I think of anything else, I'll update these messages. Right, so that's part one of this complete. I don't want to take too much of your time. Part two is going to go into the actual development of the app, but just the email side of it, where I'm communicating with the customer, getting it finished. And I'm going to show you the quotes that I sent to the customer, which were 10, 20 times higher than £200 because I made a mistake that first time. Okay, so what I want you to really take away from this is, I'm not going to go through the images, it's too difficult, waste time. What I want you to take away from this is that the customer is king. Whatever specs they put down, you have to acknowledge those specs, give them a cost for those specs, and then acknowledge them again. But when I say acknowledge them again, I don't mean acknowledge the specs. I mean acknowledge what their target is. Find out what their target is. Now, I haven't done that fully in this first section. In the second section, I do. So look out for part two coming in the next 2 days or so, or just look at the sidebar of YouTube. So what I'm trying to do is understand the customer, the individual, not a customer as a group, but the individual. Then I'm going to talk to him in his language. This isn't perfect, what you've seen. There are many ways I would improve this and change it for the better, but nonetheless, it did the job. He accepted the quote, although it was too low. And so now you have somewhat of a framework to speak to customers when you've just started learning to code or published 1 or 2 apps, maybe not started learning, but once you've published a small portfolio of apps, you now have a framework that you can abide by to speak to customers and get them hooked on the idea that you actually care about their end product and you want to make it for them. So I hope that helped. If there are any questions about this process that you want me to dive into, drop them in the comments and I will try and get round to them. Perhaps I'll even do a video response for you. Before I go, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all the rest of that good stuff that helps spread these videos wide and far. I'll see you in part 2.